Daniel Christensen is a 14-year-old boy living in Denmark. Recently, the young Danish boy had been assigned an interesting history project, so he decided to do something unconventional to complete his homework. Daniel's homework assignment was a report on World War II. As soon as he was assigned his topic, Daniel went over to talk about his homework with his father, Klaus. His son's homework assignment immediately reminded Klaus of an old story. When Daniel brought up the assignment to his father, Klaus was instantly reminded of an old tale that his own father would tell him. Klaus then shared the story with his son, telling him about a plane that supposedly crashed in the backyard during World War II. Klaus didn't expect that this old tale would come in handy in the long run. Klaus told the Telegraph, "When Daniel was recently given homework about World War II, I jokingly told him to go out and find the plane that supposedly crashed out in the field." Daniel's grandfather had spread the story for some time. However, no one actually believed that there was any truth to it. Still, Daniel was pretty intrigued by the story and decided to investigate for himself. Both Klaus and Daniel wanted to see if there was any truth to the story, so the two of them got a metal detector so they could search through the backyard. So father and son went out into the backyard to begin searching for the truth. They brought out the metal detector and began to hover it over all the field. At first, nothing was really coming up, and it was a bit disappointing. Then the metal detector started to beep over one specific area. Daniel and Klaus stared at each other in disbelief. If the metal detector had really uncovered something, then that means that Daniel's grandfather was actually telling the truth. So, what did the metal detector help him find? Daniel and his father quickly discovered the remains of a German World War II pilot buried beneath the ground. The German information officer was able to identify the pilot as 19-year-old Hans Wunderlich. The pilot's logbook and the initials were etched into a watch that was found amongst the wreckage. Hans Wunderlich was flying his plane over the Danish village of Berkels in 1944 when it crashed into the ground. Klaus and Daniel quickly informed people of their discovery, as it was an enormous shock. Soon, thanks to the German information officer, they were able to piece together the pilot's life. Hans Wunderlich was born in Neusorg, a small town in the state of Bavaria. The crash occurred on October 10, 1944, according to Germany's archives. The archives recorded the event as a deadly crash in marshy terrain. Excavation work was postponed since this is in vain. This explains why the parts were all still there when Daniel and Klaus went to look. Daniel and Klaus managed to borrow a neighbor's excavator when they heard the beeping from the metal detector. The men dug down to about 4 to 6 feet deep until they finally discovered fragments of the plane. The plane was broken apart in many small pieces, and the men truly couldn't believe their eyes. In the first moment, it was not a plane, Mr. Christensen told the BBC. It was maybe 2,000 to 5,000 pieces of a plane. And we found a motor. Then suddenly we found parts of bones and parts from pilots' clothes. As the men continued to search, they found more and more belongings. And then we found some personal things. Books, a wallet with money. Either it was a little Bible or it was Mein Kampf, a book in his pocket. We didn't touch it. We just put it in some bags. A museum is now taking care of it. I think there's a lot of information in those papers. The father and son quickly contacted the World War II historians and the Danish authorities. All of them were able to contact the correct people to find out all the information on the pilot and the crash. For now, however, the area has been closed off for further investigations. The area has now been closed off so that the plane pieces could be safely removed. Bomb disposal experts have headed out to the area to ensure that it's done with the utmost care. Forensic police are also working on recovering all the dead pilot's remains so that he can be buried in Germany afterwards. Before the discovery of the pilot and his remains, the field had been used by Klaus as an area for his cattle to graze. He had no idea what was buried underneath his field for the past 40 years. He's still shocked by the discovery. Klaus also states that there was nothing visible above ground that would ever given the impression that there was something buried beneath ground. We had never seen anything on the surface, Klaus stated. The discovery was truly a shocker. Not a single bit of metal. He was telling a lot of stories, my grandfather. Some of them were not true, and some of them were true, but this one was true. Maybe I should have listened to him a bit more when he was alive, Klaus confessed. Luckily, there was someone willing to listen. Despite his dad joking about the possibility of a discovery in the backyard, Daniel decided to take a chance. It seems that it worked out for the young Danish schoolboy. Daniel's quite proud of himself for coming across such an amazing discovery. This young boy's discovery just goes to show you that you can find something truly miraculous as close as your own backyard.